Alright, they designed a cartridge, the 8mm cartridge, and now they had to design a rifle. So we're going to start with the receiver. Now this example here probably is going to be the best example I have of an original receiver from the early guns. It's a Spandau 1889. Now the original receivers were in the white like this. They weren't blued, they didn't match the barrel jacket, they were two-tone guns. That's the way the original receiver is. This one is probably the closest we're going to find to the actual first model. Now if you notice here, it has three different markings on the receiver. A punch mark, a Z, and the S. Each one of these three marks means something different, and it has to deal with the barrel. Modifications to the barrel. That was the thing that was modified on this gun. We'll cover each one of these markings separately and explain specifically what this means. So when the commission went to design a gun, the first idea was, well, we'll just modify our 7184s to shoot smokeless powder cartridges. Well, so they had engineers working on this, and in the book they more or less say that what this is a modified version of the 7184 receiver, or an updated, upgraded one. It is a split bridge receiver. Now what a split bridge receiver is the bolt travels through this split in the receiver. So you got your forward receiver ring and the split where the bolt comes down and locks in. There are two locking lugs that lock up in front, and this was supposedly a safety. If this failed, the bolt handle would catch on the receiver. Now this is a throwback from, I have a 7184 here. All these older black powder guns, the 71, 7184, the Chassepots, French Chassepots, and the Gras, all of these guns had a bolt that had no locking lugs. The cartridge was placed up into the chamber, and when the bolt came down, this part of the bolt body here would lock into the receiver. So basically one giant lug is this section locks up into the receiver. That's it. There are no lugs on the face of the bolt or the end of the bolt on all these old black powder guns. So this was kind of a modification of this older design. It was a standard design used by a lot of countries for the black powder thing, but they had to add locking lugs to it. Now the next thing is the way you get this bolt out. This bolt was held in place with this washer and screw. The French had a screw that go through the side of the receiver, and you got to loosen the screw and then manipulate this. If you go to my video on the disassembly of the 7184, I show you how to get the bolt out. It was a complex thing. Also, this version had an extractor. We'll look at that closer when we look at the bolts. Now on this gun, on the 88, they had a simplified version. This little button here had two functions. A, it was an ejector, and B, it was a bolt stop. So all you had to do to remove the bolt was apply pressure to this button, and your bolt come out. Mauser had a different style. This style was used on this rifle and the Dutch and Romanian Steyr-made bolt-action rifles, which I don't have any examples to show you, but it was used on several other type of guns. And here we'll take a look at it from here. When we press this down, I don't know if you can see it, this is the ejector part, and then there's a heavier part that goes into the recess that's actually the bolt stop. We'll try to get a look down into the receiver down in there. And you can see the two of them. This is the ejector that rides in the slot in the bolt head, and then this heavy thing in the back is what stops the bolt from coming out of the gun. I don't know if we can get the camera angle down in there and see that or not. Down, okay. Yeah, that's the stop, that's the ejector. This is the way the system was. Now, mind you, this system was adopted in 1888. How it compares 1888, 3 years later, 1891, a lot of other countries were playing catch-up and wanted to get back into smokeless powder. So how that compares in other countries that use split bridge receivers is this 1891 Italian Carcano. You know, it has a different bolt, but same idea. You know, split bridge receiver, 2 lugs. This does not have a bolt stop on it. You pull the trigger and the bolt comes out. Part of the trigger mechanism, there's this piece that sticks up down in here. This is your ejector. When you pull the trigger and drop the sear down, that releases the bolt. But this little piece, which is a part of the trigger, sticks up and goes through a slot in the bolt and will eject the cartridge out. It's a little bit different of a system. Also, they found that a one-piece bolt with 2 locking lugs was better for the smokeless powder. Now, we go to the Nagant 91, not to be confused with the 9130. And again, we have another split bridge receiver. But this retained the bolt body part that locks, as you can see, it locks down into the receiver, like the old black powder guns. Doesn't have a stop. Again, you pull the trigger, remove the bolt, and we'll go over in detail the bolts. But this was another design. Now by 1888 or 1889, 1891, Mauser with smokeless powders, this is an 1891 Argentine Mauser. Mauser was already developing which would become the new type of gun, or a better, superior design with a solid receiver. The bolt handle was placed in the back, and the lugs is what locks in. The bolt no longer goes through a split bridge and comes up into the front. This is how rapidly, in a matter of years, the development of firearms changed. Now these 2 models here, the Italian and the Russian Nagant, used the old-fashioned style receivers and actions, and they were kept in production until World War II. And basically that's where your technology is. It's a modification of the older black powder receivers. Okay, now we're going to go on to the bolt in the next video.